This is S.Manochitra from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at St.Joseph College of Engineering, OMR, Chennai. In this video lecture, we are going to start with the topic called Scrum in Agile Software Engineering subject. So in this topic, we are going to enhance with a thing called Agile Software Engineering. So we know what is Agile practices. When it comes to the traditional approach, it is more modern approach. Nowadays we are using for the development purposes, we are using the Agile practices only. The Scrum is also one of the Agile practices method. Here, so before starting with the Scrum, we should know what all the things are available in the Scrum. So the first, in the Scrum, we have three different roles. The first role is Scrum Master, the Product Owner, and then the Development Team. So the development team here, it starts with the thing called the collaborative type of members will be there in the development team. There will be a developer, front-end developer, the back-end developer, and similarly there will be a tester, and the collaborative type of members will be in the development team. And the next one is Product Owner. Who is Product Owner? There will be a mediator between the client and then the organization, right? So here, this particular Product Owner is responsible for defining the user story and the requirements. So here, the Product Owner will be the intermediate between the client and then the organization. So he is a representative of the client on the on-site. So this is the Product Owner. So he is more responsible for the requirement analysis and requirement providing. And then the Scrum Master. So who is Scrum Master? So for this development team, there will be a Scrum Master. This Scrum Master will coach the Agile practices and then for the entire team. So this is what is the three different roles are available in the Scrum. And then the artifacts. What is artifacts in the sense? We have three different artifacts are available. The first one is product backlog, sprint backlog, and then the increment. So what is product backlog? For example, I'm just going to have the customer is required on online shopping cart, required to build this application for online shopping cart. So when we are developing a web application, then we have to find out the requirements. So the requirement collection will be the responsible of the product owner. So the product owner will take the responsibility of developing the product backlog. So what is product backlog? It is a collection of requirements or user stories. So this is what is here. This is what is the product backlog. So what is product backlog? For example, initially we have to collect the use cases. So how this can be done? So this can be done initially, the use case has to be collected. From the use cases, we have to collect the high level functionality called epics. From the epics, we have to convert that into the user stories, where the user stories will be prioritized and it will be given to the development team for the development purposes. So this is what is the collection of user stories. When we are seeing with the Scrum, we will see this detailed. Next one is sprint backlog. What is sprint backlog means? Here we can have the sprints for the maximum of 2 to 4 weeks. So each sprint, a set of requirements or the dependent requirements will be developed and it will be delivered. That is what is sprint backlog and then the increment. We'll see an example for all of these things. First, we'll see a product backlog. So when the product backlog, what we are going to do is that the product owner is responsible for collecting the use cases. So for example, the use cases is online shopping cart. What is the requirement of? Obviously, we are in requirement of online shopping without going directly to the shop. So what happens? Here the purchase should be very easy and very flexible to the customer. So this is the main objective of the project vision of the product owner. And then what happened? So here what I have to do, I have to register myself. So I can have the thing called, I have to register first. Initially I have to register it, and then their mobile number, and then the my mobile number, and then the email ID, and then I have to search for the particular items, and then I have to go for the purchase, all those things. So this is the use cases which we are going to collect, which the product owner is going to collect it from the client side. And then from the use cases, we are going to convert that into epics. What is this epics? Epics is nothing but the high level language, high level functionality representation. So high level functionality representation. So for what is the final high level functional requirements? From the epics, we are going to convert that into user stories. So this is very, very important. User stories. What is this user stories? From the functional requirements, we are going to convert that into user stories. First, we know that is the page required. For example, if you are trying to open a particular page, open your shopping cart, it has to take only 2 to 3 milliseconds, 3 seconds to refresh on the page. It should not take beyond it. And similarly, if there are a number of items are there, and all those items should not be displayed on one single page. It should be displayed in multiple pages. So this is because since the flexibility of the user and then the convenience should be very important. So that's the requirements which we have, right? So the requirement is we have to purchase it. That's it. Then what is the function which required, who is going to operate it, all those things will be represented in the user stories. For example, let us take a registration. Registration is a one form. Registration is in one form. So registration. So all user must hold for registration. The second one is the user can search for items, and then get live help. It may be like purchasing an item. Right, so that is payment gateway which we have to include it, right? All these are the different requirements which we have collected, right? These are the epics. These are the epics. From the epics, what we are going to do is that we are going to convert that into user story. What this user story represents in the registration form. So how the user story will be? As an administrator, I want to see all the user activities. So this is what the requirement, right? So this is what the user story. So who is going to do it? The administrator is going to monitor this registration purpose. So what they want? They want to see all the user activities. So that is the main thing which we are going to do with. So registration, and then user can search for items, right? So how this can be written in the user stories? As a customer, I want to search for a product. Search for a product. So this is what is the, so that I can buy. I can buy. So this is what the user story. What the user story? As a customer wants to search for any of the item which they are interested. So that is the main thing, the user stories. Whenever we are writing the user stories, we need to go for the two things. One is priority, another one is estimated story points. So story points has to be estimate for each and everything. And the third one is acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria. So these three things should be there for each and every user stories. So for example, here the priority, obviously each customer must have to go for registration, then only they can be able to purchase any item. So the priority will be always high. The priority will be always high. And similarly, the acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria, when the user is completed, when this entire product which is being developed and it is completed by the client side, so that will be the acceptance criteria which we are going to set it. So for example, here once the user is registered, obviously what happens, it has to send an OTP and we have to verify that particular person is valid person or not. So that's the one registration, one acceptance criteria. The second acceptance criteria, you have to go for the email ID. If they are providing with the email ID, you have to send the confirmation email, and then after the confirmation email receiving, then only we can say that it is a properly registered user. So this is the acceptance criteria which we are going to set over here. Similarly, we see the second one. As a customer, I want to search for a product so that I can buy any product which I am interested. So here what happened, obviously all the customer must have to buy some or going to buy. So the priority will be high. And then the acceptance criteria. What is this acceptance criteria in the sense? Here I am going to search for a particular item. For example, I am going to find the handbag, right? Search for the handbag. So handbag in the sense, how many handbag in the sense, I am going to display all the handbags. So first exact match has to be displayed. So this is the acceptance criteria. And then the partially matched will be displayed. And similarly in a page, it should require only 20 maximum of, right, let me fill a maximum of 20 products in a page. In a page. So in a page, beyond 20 minutes, it is very clumsy to see, clumsy for the customer to view all the products. So this is what is the acceptance criteria. In the estimated story point, after this we'll see that at last of this video we'll see this estimated story points. So this is what is their use cases, epics and user stories. So the next is sprint backlog. What is sprint backlog? For example, administrator, right? Let me take a simple one user story, administrator. So in the registration, in the registration what we have to do? We have to find that what is the first thing. So we have to create a form, and then I have to go for the implementation of validation, and then integrate with the backend, right, and then the confirmation mail. So confirmation mail. So all these things are called as here one single sprint. For example, consider here it is not a it's not a big process as of now which we considered. So let me take hours. In hour basis we consider this as a sprint. For this, for example, for this one I am going to have a sprint as 2 hours. 2 hours for the implementation of this registration. This is the sprint 1. So in the sprint 1. So in the sprint 1, how many things are there? 4 different four different requirements has to be implemented, and then it has to be completed. Then only we can say that this registration is completed. So this is sprint 1, 2 hours. And sprint 2. So sprint 2, user can search for any item. So this has to be searched with all the sub requirements, and all these requirements has to be implemented. And sprint 2, it may take 3 hours. So this is what is a sprint backlog. Sprint backlog means in sprint 1 what we are doing and what are the sub requirements are there. Sprint 2 what are all the requirements. Sprint 3 what are all the requirements. Sprint 4. So in this we collectively we are representing it. And then finally increments. Each and every sprint there will be a short increments will be delivered to the customer. So this is what is the initial process of the entire Scrum. Now we will see the Scrum process. This is the Scrum process. So initially the project vision. So the project vision will be the client side. So on site the product owner will be the responsible for collecting the requirements from the client as well as client, and then they will be the responsible for the client side on site manager. And here the product backlog will be there, that is the collection of products, right? The collection of products, and then that is product backlog. All these things are product backlog. Product backlog. From the product backlog we have to go for the prioritization. After the priorities, that is based on the priority, we have to arrange all the story cards, and that will be given as a sprint backlog. How in a sprint how many number of story points can be implemented. So that will be the sprint backlog. So after the sprint backlog, the sprint process will get started. Here we have 3 different meetings. One is sprint daily stand-up meeting, sprint review meeting, and sprint retrospective meeting. So these are 3 different meetings are there in the sprint process. So sprint daily meeting means that in a daily basis at the morning or at the evening end of the day they have to conduct the meeting, and for 15 minutes, maximum of 15 minutes, what has to be done for today and what else what we planned and whether it is executed or not, that we have to analyze it in the daily stand-up meeting. In the sprint review meeting, the sprint review meeting will be conducted for the weekly once. So this sprint review meeting will be assigned in such a way that we have to check on whether is there any impediments are available. If there is any resources are not available, that has to be informed prior to the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is responsible for review all those impediments and remove all the blocks for the Scrum team. And the next one is sprint retrospective meeting. What is sprint retrospective meeting in the sense, at the end of the sprint, we have to conduct the sprint retrospective meeting. What the sprint retrospective meeting in the sense, in the previous sprint, what is going well and which one is not going well, what is the drawback in that, and how this can be improved in the next sprint. So that will be analyzed in the sprint retrospective meeting. So this is what is. So what happened? Product backlog, sprint backlog. From the sprint, we have maximum of 2 to 4 weeks in the sprint. So the sprint can be consist of with the 3 different meetings. Daily stand-up meeting, daily there will be a meeting, and then at the sprint weekly once there will be a sprint review meeting will be there, and at the end of the sprint there will be a sprint retrospective meeting. So here we know what is impediment, right? Removing the blocks. If there is any blocks, resources are not available for the Scrum team, the Scrum Master will be the responsible to remove all the blocks. And burn down chart. What this burn down chart? The burn down chart is nothing but how many number of sprints are there, how much time is required to complete it, whether we are on the track or off the track. So that will be or beyond the track, that we are going to track the Scrum process in a using the burn down chart. For example, I have planned it for 10 days, but I have completed within 8 days. Then the track that is we have completed within 8 days. So that is that we are going to track using the burnt down chart. So this, after the first sprint, one shippable that is one product will be delivered to the customer. That is, the next increment will be developed and it will be released by the next increment and next increment in the next increment. We start with the estimated story points. So what is story point estimation in the sense? Story point estimation in the sense, each requirement, each user story must have a certain story points has to be there. For example, as a customer, I want to search for a product so that I can buy the product, so that I can buy it. So here, when it comes to here, we have to, this is a user story. So for this user story, we have to estimate the story points. What are the story points? So it consists of story points, how the story points can be estimated in the sense. So in this, I can have the exact match, right? When I am searching for the exact match, and then I can have partial match, and then in a page, a maximum of 20 products can be displayed in a page. So this is the thing. So these are the main thing which we have included in the story user stories. Now for each thing we have to set the story points. The story points which we have set here, for example, it may be of 2, and then the priority, based on the priority we have to give the story points, and then so totally 6. In addition to that, each requirements we may depends on some resources we are awaiting for it, and similarly there are some cases uncertainty may also happen. So all those, with these calculations only we are estimating approximately 2 and 2 for the user story. So consider this, for example, this may consist of, okay, for example, let me have this as a 1. So totally 5 user stories, right? 5 user stories, and the story point which we have estimated is here as 5. So what it means that it just consists of all the requirements, sub requirements, and each requirements how many times it required and how much that is there any risk is available, right? So and similarly the uncertainty may happen. So all those things which can be considered, which has to be considered in terms of estimating the story points. From the story points, I have arranged with the story points as 5, right? The sprint duration, for example, I am going to have a sprint duration of 5 hours, and then the thing. So story points, from the story points we have to convert that into velocity. What is velocity in the sense? So the story point is only for the requirements, and this velocity means how much member is required, how much duration is required, so that I can be able to consider, for example, that a story point is 360. Consider that the story point is 360, and the sprint duration is 2 weeks. Let us consider this 2 weeks. So story points, we have seen here how to calculate the story points. Now the story points is only for the requirement analysis, and this is for the requirements alone, which does not calculate the effort. So we need a matrix that requires this, converts the story point into velocity. So that can be converted into an effort. So this is the main thing which we need. So story points is only for the requirement, and this requirements will not be used for the evaluation of or metric for the efforts. So what we have to do, we have to convert the story points into efforts with the help of velocity. And then what does this velocity means? In a sprint, how that is how many story points can be completed. So that has to be evaluated that by the velocity. So now when we go with the velocity, we have to consider it. For example, we have to estimate the velocity points based on the team preferences. For example, if the team which is already being in any of the agile project, for example, let us consider two cases. The case one, if the team members all are new to agile, new employee with only 5 years of experience, and they are new to the agile practices. Now obviously it will take some time to complete the process, so the velocity will be higher. And the same thing, the second case 2, the case 2 is nothing but if the team which is already worked in the agile practices and they are good at the they have completed the similar projects, they have already they have developed and they have completed with that also. So with the velocity may be lesser. So this is based on the team preferences, the velocity may get vary. So based on story points has to be converted into a velocity, that is effort, we need the velocity. So this is what is the thing. So based on that only we have to we have to find the number of sprints required. So for example, let me take an average velocity as 10, right? Average velocity as 10. So what is story point is for requirement. This requirements cannot be converted into efforts directly. So for this what we need the velocity. So the velocity is nothing but in a sprint how many story points can be completed by the team. So Scrum team. So that will be estimated in the velocity. So this velocity is required on the prior data which is available. This is the historical data which we have to take for the team members. Based on that we have to calculate the velocity. So from the velocity we have the story point, and approximately the duration is 2 weeks which we have, and then the average velocity is 10, and now we have to calculate the number of sprints required. So number of sprints required in the sense, so the story points divided by the velocity, story points divided by velocity, which is nothing but 360 divided by 10. So 360, here the story point is 360. So 360 divided by the average velocity is 60. So average velocity 60 means the average sprint required is 6. So the number of sprint required is number of sprint required is 6. So 6 sprints are required. So based on these data we can be able to calculate it. So the number of sprints required is 6. Now we have to go for the release planning. What is this release? When we have seen the diagram of Scrum architecture, where at the last we have shippable increment, right? So each increment we must have the certain release date has to be there. For example, how much duration is required, that we have to calculate it. So the number of sprint required is 6, and obviously one sprint, that is 25% of sprint, that is 2 sprints will be required for buffer period. So 2 sprints, that is 25% is for buffer. So 25% for buffer means 2 sprint will be given. So totally how much it will be? Totally 6 plus 2 plus 1%, that is pre-release. Before the release, we have to pre-release, the pre-release for that one sprint will be there. So, one pre-release, so one sprint. So, totally how many sprints are required? 9 sprints. So, 9 sprints, and how much duration for a sprint? 2 weeks. So, 9 into 2, it is 18 weeks is required to complete the particular task. This is what is the storage release planning. So, story points that will be converted into a velocity. From the velocity only we can be able to complete the release planning. So, that is for example 18 weeks, that is we have to consider within 18 weeks. So, this is the duration of the entire product development. Now, we go for the burn down chart, right? Let me take the simple example. Let me take a simple example here. So here the number of sprint, the x-axis is nothing but the number of sprints, and the y-axis which represents the number of story points, that is how much we have completed, how much story points we have completed. So everything is depends on the story points. The story points has to be calculated with the user stories. So, and the sprint, there are 5 sprints are there, and the estimated duration which I have represented as in hours, 5, initially 5, that is 5 duration is there, and then I am just going to 5 story points are here, and then 5 and 4 and 2 and 1 and 0, right. So, this is what at the end of the 5th sprint it is completed. So, this is the estimation which we planned, actually we planned for it, right. So, this is the ideal line, directly linear line has to be drawn. This is an ideal line. Next one is actual. I have a 3 scenario, case 1, case 2 and then case 3. So, 3 scenarios are there. So, actual C1 we have 5, right. So, at the starting of it, the sprint 1 we have the 5 value, and then the sprint 2 we have 4, and then sprint 3 we have 2, and the sprint 4 we have 1 and then 0. So, now you can be able to see this. So, this is the story point which we have. Actual, estimated, this is what is the actual outline, and then now we can say that this project has been completed on time, that is on time. So, we can see that this is on time completion, right, or beyond that, before the planning itself we can complete the project. And the second scenario, 5, 4, that is 5, 4, and then here it is 3, sorry 4 is 3, 5, 4 is 3, 2 is 1, and then 0, 0, 0. Now, before the product release, before the product pre-release, we can be able to complete the product. So, now you can see that in the upper arrow beyond it. So, that after the estimate, beyond the estimation we have to go for the process, and after the estimation we have to go for the process. So, this is what is the burn down chart. Hi, I hope you all enjoy this video, and if you have any comments, any questions or queries in this video lecture, just please comment on this video. Thank you.